What's up, everyone? Back after a short break. Here I look down at ace, 8-3 rainbow in early position, about 20 minutes into the session in a straddled pot. Under the gun calls over to me. So of course these are about the worst aces you're going to possibly see. I can't make a flush. I can only make one straight, which will never be the nuts. So with this hand, I either want to see the flop very cheaply, or if I can back raise and get most of my money in, then I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I limp over to a late position player who makes it 40. There are 4 callers over to me. And of course, I'm just going to stick to the plan here and go ahead and shove everything in the middle. The original raiser thinks a sec and makes the call, folds over to the player to my right, who calls all in for less. So we're going 3 ways to a run out. Flop comes queen, jack, 6 rainbow. So not a great flop. There's going to be a lot of queens, jacks, a lot of king, 10-9, a lot of wraps here in my opponent's range. Turn brings another jack. River brings a queen. So of course now anyone with a queen or a jack is going to beat me. I just turn over my hand very sheepishly and the button mucks, and the player to my right thinks a bit and mucks as well. So happy to take down this pot here in the early going. Early after the previous hand, I look down at king, 7-6, double suited in the big blind. There's an early position limp. Next player makes it 25. 2 callers to me, I call, and the limper calls. We're going 5 ways to a flop. Quick note on pocket kings, and I definitely want to know your guys' opinion out there. Pocket kings are the pocket jacks of PLO. Let me know what you guys think about that. Flop comes 10-9-5 rainbow. Checks to me, I check over to the original raiser who bets 125. Folds to me, and the problem with this hand is you really don't know where you're at. I mean, of course I could be good, but 10s, 9s, 10-9, some kind of like queen jack 10-9 is definitely very possible for a lot of players here. So if I hit an 8, I make the 3rd best straight. If I hit a king, queen jack is very possible. So that's kind of what I was talking about with my, kings being the pocket jacks of Hold'em. You never really know where you're at. And for those reasons, I fold. A little while after the previous hand, I looked down at ace, jack, 7, double suited in the hijack in a $20 double board bomb pot. Now, pretty excited about this, as the last time I played here, they were talking about adding them, but they just had to go through all the process of getting approved from the state and all that stuff. So, cool to finally see them get it. We go to flops of jack 5-4 with 2 clubs and 7-5-4 with 2 spades. Checks to an early position player who bets the full pot of 180. Next player calls. Folds over to the player to my right, who calls all in for less, then over to me. So when I look at my hand, of course, I do have the nuts currently on the top board, but don't really have a ton of equity on the bottom, besides, potentially a backdoor flush draw. And in these double board bomb pots, you really want to be able to scoop first and foremost. Now, if you can't scoop, you really want your hand on one board to be almost impossible to be drawn out on. Now, jack 5-4 with 2 clubs, I mean, if somebody has, let's say like 6, 7, 8 with clubs, I mean, they're pretty much flipping on that board. Plus they have a straight on the bottom board. So, really can't continue here with $700 stack. And now if I just have 100 something bucks, then I can just kind of push it in and just pray that my set holds. But, not having anything on the bottom, I have to fold here. The turns bring a 9 of hearts on the top, 9 of diamonds on the bottom. 4 players ended up getting all their money in, going to the rivers, which brought an ace of clubs on the top and a 10 of spades on the bottom. Might be a little difficult to see on the screen, but the late position player turns over queen 10-7-5 with the 10-7 of clubs, so he makes a flush on the top board. The player in the small blind shows 6-8 for the straight on the bottom, and then the player to my right ends up turning over 10-8, 6-3, so he also flopped the straight on the bottom and made a lower flush on the top. So player in late position is going to take the top board, and the other 2 players are going to chop the bottom board. About 45 minutes after the previous hand, I look down at king, queen, jack 10, single suited in middle position in a straddled pot. Folds to me, I make it 20, and there are 5 callers, so we're going 6 ways to a flop. Flop comes king 9-8 with 2 clubs. Checks to me. Now, obviously, if this board was rainbow, I can bet this way more aggressively. I would probably bet more in like the $80 to $90 range. But as such, not having the clubs, I bet 40, which is more of a blocker, but I think I can also get value from, like a king 10-7, king 7-6, worst pair, worst straight draw combo. So I bet 40, and we get 2 callers. So we're going 3 ways to a turn. Turn brings an 8 of clubs, so at this point I'm pretty much done with the hand. Checks to me, I check, and the late position player checks. River brings a 5, again I check, everyone checks around. Late position player ends up turning over a low flush, so he's going to take it down.
What's up guys, Wayne back here with you. So it's been a little bit since I've posted, figured I would just chat, just kind of let you know what's been going on. So as some of you have probably seen from my posts, I've really just been embracing the tournament grind this year. Haven't played a ton of cash. You know, just trying to get as many tournaments in as possible, just so I have a large sample size to kind of see what I can potentially expect over a year period. I'll definitely have some kind of video out towards the end of the year, just kind of sharing my results. So really just focusing on tournaments, and when I'm not playing tournaments, I've really been playing cash in the online club that Josh and I, you know, are a part of. You've probably seen some content that Josh has put out about that, but it's really a great club, you know, filled with either people we personally know, people we've met at our various meetup games, or the rest is viewers. So, you know, it's a great club with PLO 456. We play Big O. We have PLO 6 double board bomb pot only game. You know, so there's really a little bit for everyone. You know, every Monday and Thursday in the month of September, we have what's called a chip storm, where $500 total in increments of $5 to $50 is going to be dropped to randomly seeded players. So whether you're an experienced player or someone who's new and just looking to learn the game, you know, it's definitely a great club for you to kind of hop into. So if you're interested, I'm going to put the information on the top of the screen, and that's my number. So just shoot me a message on WhatsApp and I can get you in there. Now, as far as the tournaments are concerned, you know, it's definitely been a mixed bag of results. I've had very long streaks of not cashing, but I've also had some pretty good scores. You know, when we were in the Hard Rock Hollywood a couple months ago, we did pretty well, but, you know, didn't have permission to film, so couldn't really get content out. But that's just been kind of what's been going on. So as a result, haven't had much content to post for y'all, but definitely looking forward to, you know, getting some more cash games in, you know, when I don't have a tournament to play. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment down below as always, and let's get back into the action.
This hand's about 2 hours into the session. I look down at ace, queen, jack 3, single suited in the big blind. There are 3 limpers. We end up going 5 ways to a flop of 3-3-2 with 2 spades. Checks to me, I bet 15, and there are 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a turn. The turn brings a 10, small blind checks me once again. I bet 35 and both players call, so still going 3 ways to a river. The river brings a jack, small blind checks me once again, and here I'm just thinking of a sizing that I can get called by. You know, obviously all the draws bricked, so if somebody has a 3, you know, they're probably going to have to pay me off. So I bet 155. Lay position player quickly folds over to the small blind, who ends up tanking for over a minute. He ends up turning over the 4 or 5 of spades as well as a 3, and ends up making a pretty good fold. So I guess he had no kicker with it. So, you know, he obviously loses to any other 3. And I guess I could have probably bet smaller, but still happy to take down the pot. Shortly after the previous hand, I looked down at ace, ace, 10, 9, single suited in the small blind. Folds over to a late position player who makes it 20. Folds to me, I call, and the big blind also calls. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. The flop comes out ace, king, 3 with 2 hearts. I check, big blind checks over to the original raiser who bet 60. And I decide to just call here for a couple reasons. One, the late position player is pretty loose, so I've seen him fire 2-3 streets with pretty much air. So I'm hoping that, you know, he'll do that again here. And the player in the big blind is pretty sticky. You know, he's the player that had the low flush on that king 9-8 board a couple hands ago. So he's definitely likely to get in there with some pretty wide holdings as well. And I call, and the player in the big blind decides to put all of his chips in the middle for 300 total. Over to the original raiser who thinks a bit and folds. And of course I make the call. So we're going heads up to a run out. The turn brings the queen of diamonds. The river brings a 6 of clubs. So it looks like a pretty safe board for me. Only jack 10 beats me. I turn over my hand and my opponent turns over his. He has the ace 8, 5, 4 with the nut flush draw. And we're going to take this one down here. I go card dead for an hour until I look down at ace, queen, jack 3 double suited in the big blind. Under the gun makes it 20. There are 4 callers to me and I call. So we're going 6 ways to a flop. The flop comes out 10-7-2 with 2 clubs. Checks to me, I check. Over to the under the gun original raiser who bets 120. Folds to me, and he only has 105 behind. Now, if he had, let's say, like 400 or 500 behind where, you know, I'd have to call the 120 and then potentially 360 on the turn, I would probably fold, especially since I don't have a pair and I only have a naked flush draw. But for 225 total to see 2 cards, I decide to just put them all in, and he of course makes the call, and we're going heads up to a run out. The turn brings in the front door flush with a 9 of clubs. River pairs the board with a 7, and my opponent turns over ace, ace, jack 9. So we're going to take this one down here against the same opponent. About 30 minutes after the previous hand, I look down at ace, king, jack 9, single suited under the gun in a straddled pot. I limp. There are 2 limps behind. Over to the big blind who makes it 30. 1 call to me, I call, and there are 2 calls behind. So we're going 5 ways to a flop. Flop comes out ace, queen, 9, rainbow. Checks to me, I bet 60, and only the original raiser calls. So we're going heads up to a turn. The turn brings an 8 of hearts, now giving us the backdoor nut flush draw. My opponent checks, and I kind of put him on jack 10 when he called the flop. So I decided to just take a free card. So we're going heads up still to a river. River doesn't give us any help with a 5. My opponent checks once again, and I don't really know him too well. I mean, I doubt he would check jack 10 twice. Maybe I'd be able to get thin value from, like a worse 2 pair like queen 9, but I wasn't sure, so I just took the conservative approach and checked back and turned it over, and we're good. This hand's almost 2 hours after the previous hand. I look down at king jack 10-4 single suited in the cutoff in a double board bomb pot. We go to flops of jack 10-5 rainbow and ace king 7 rainbow. When action checks to me, I decide to bet small in 35. This accomplishes a couple things. 1, it's going to trim the field, but 2, it's also going to give me the betting lead while not also betting too much where I'm committing myself to the hand. I mean, I do have top 2 on the 1 board, but I'm not going to like any straight card, any 7, 8, 9, queen, king, ace. Then on the other board, I just have middle pair with a gutter. So I'm just kind of trying to see where I'm at, and we get 3 callers. So we're going 4 ways to a couple turns. The turns are pretty good for us on both boards, and a 6 of diamonds on top and a king of diamonds on the bottom. So now we have a flush draw on both, trips obviously on the bottom. When action checks to me, I want to bet a little bit larger than I did on the flop. So I decide on 240 and fold over to the last player who thinks a bit, but folds. So we're going to take this one down.
What's up, guys? Wayne back here with you. So today I was in for 300, out for 1327, so profit of 1027. Felt good to be back. Haven't been here in quite a while, but it actually looks like the action's picked up. Previously the games used to run Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Now it seems like they are running every weekday and sometimes even on the weekend. So if you're in the area, I definitely recommend coming to check it out. And if you haven't seen the previous one, I'll go ahead and link it up here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.